how accurate are these polls, and what's the state of the race right now? For more on that, we want to welcome in our guest. We have Marc Rudov standing by. He's the there we go. He's a marketing expert to CEO. He's also the author of Interbranding, the Keystone of Corporate Agility. Marc, wonderful to see you. And our panelists are standing by as well, Joe and Victoria. So Marc, I'll go to you. But before we do, I want to play this soundbite by Senator Ted Cruz. It's what he thinks is really at stake here and the state of the Georgia runoff races. Here's what he had to say.
This is a turnout election at this point. We've seen that there's a massive Democratic turnout operation, but I've got faith and confidence in the men and women of Georgia. I think the people of Georgia believe in common sense values. They believe in low taxes, low regulations, and lots of jobs. And I think the people of Georgia want to see a check and a balance on the extreme left wing.
Okay, so he says it all comes down to turnout, and he also sounds pretty confident that the Republicans will hold the Senate there. But Marc, I'll go to you first. Loeffler and Perdue, as we know, they've got the name recognition, but why are the polls showing this race to be so close?
Yeah, I'm not as sanguine as Ted Cruz. A brand is about value and emotional connection. Because half of Georgians, or even more than half of Georgians, seem to be leaning left, that means the brand of freedom and capitalism is in trouble. Now, why is that? That's because the schools are cranking out Marxist kids who go home to convert their parents into Marxists, who prefer free stuff over freedom. Now, Trump is going back tonight to remind people to reject Marxism. And here's something very important, Emma. 54 years ago tomorrow, in his first inaugural address as governor of California, Ronald Reagan warned the world that freedom is a fragile thing and is never more than one generation away from extinction. So tomorrow, Georgians are going to prove Ronald Reagan right or wrong.
Okay, I always love a good history lesson, Marc, so thank you for that. Really do appreciate it. Joe and Victoria, I'll go to you. We've heard from Senator Chuck Schumer saying that they would first take Georgia, and then they would change America. So I'll ask you, Joe, what's really at stake in these runoff races?
Well, what's at stake is freedom and democracy and a functioning republic. If they take the 2 Senate seats in Georgia, the Democrats, we will have a far-left government in Washington, and the consequences will be catastrophic for structural constitutional government. I must say these polls in Georgia, which both have the Democrats ahead 51 to 47, are suspect to me. I want to know what the Trafalgar Group polls show, and I'd certainly like to know who took those polls that showed the numbers at 51-47. I find those very difficult to believe.
And I want to say, Marc, I agree with you and disagree with you. I agree that our education system is in chaos and run by ultra liberals, in fact, socialists and communists. I have that grave concern. But Georgia was not turning to a blue state or a socialist state. That election was stolen in Georgia. Trust me. There are thousands of votes that were improperly made. You've got 18,000 votes by people who were not even on the voter registration list. So it's not the state that's turning. I have the same faith that Ted Cruz has in the voters. I worry about the counters.
And the president, as we heard from the leaked Washington Post phone call between President Trump and Brad Raffensperger, would also agree with that sentiment, Victoria, this idea that the race was stolen and the election was stolen from him. So, Marc, I'll ask you from a marketing perspective, does that encourage people to come out on January 5th and cast their ballots if they already believe that one election was stolen?
Well, first, let me respond to Joe and Victoria. I do agree with you that the election in Georgia was stolen. There's no question about that. But getting back to what you said, Joe, the Trafalgar Group the other day did say the race is tied. And I agree. I have faith in the Trafalgar Group data. From a marketing perspective, it's hard to know anymore what's really happening. States that were once considered, don't forget, in Texas, which is a red state, Ted Cruz barely won his election last time against Beto O'Rourke. So things are changing constantly. And what we once thought was solid in one direction is in flux. So I just don't have any confidence in anything anymore. The polls can be wrong. Yes, the election in Georgia was stolen, no question about that. I think that Kemp and Raffensperger are completely corrupted. But I don't see a lot of evidence that Georgians are going for the Republicans. I just don't see it. I want to see it. I just don't see it. So what Trump does tonight is going to be very important because he's a very persuasive president. But it's a shame that he has to even come down here to make the case for freedom and capitalism. He might as well remind voters, while he's at it, to take their umbrellas out next time it rains. That's how fundamental freedom is.
Okay, well, we'll be watching the rally tonight, and we'll see what happens on January 5th. Marc Rudov taking the time and joining us this morning. Marc, thank you very much, and our panelists stick around.
My pleasure.